They don't want us ever to win another election. They want to silence us for good, right? This is it. This is the step. That was pretty bleak. That was supposed to be a positive spin.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for coming on the show. This is my new podcast, Reality Check, and I'm so happy to start having guests back and start talking to people. And also just, I feel like it was appropriate for you to kind of christen off the show because you were one of the first guests I had on my original show, and then you were, again, a guest on my most recent show, and now here's the third iteration of my podcast. And here you are back. I just can't get enough of you. I don't know what it is.
Third and final, or we're going to have a new one, Cal?
I don't know. I mean, it all depends because, again, with the fluctuating times and how everything works, I tend to rebrand every couple of years. So this will be the third time of rebranding, and we'll just see what happens. You know, I'm going to keep podcasting until, you know, they pull the plug on my YouTube channel, and then they come to my house and take away my internet, and then, oh my gosh, I can't even have electricity. Well, Gavin Newsom's already taken care of that. So... But since, as we talked about off the air a little bit, I've got a lot of new followers and subscribers, and perhaps even some people that aren't actually familiar with you. And so I wanted to start off by just kind of going back and talking about who is Amanda PRESTIGIACOMO? What is she? What makes her tick? But really just kind of what your background is, whether it's your political history or just even the values that you grew up with that made you the person that you are today.
Well, just getting into the political sphere, I entered it in 2016 during the Trump election year. So that was really fun to get thrown into this at that time. So I've been at the Daily Wire for 4 years. So that's pretty much my only media experience. I've been at the Daily Wire and really enjoy it there. And I'll probably, stay there until they kick me out. So stuff. I was like a teacher right out of college. I went to school for teaching, and I taught for like a year, and that wasn't really sitting with what I wanted to do. And then I, got a job at a law firm, and I was like, maybe I'll go to law school. And then I, pitched Ben, and it turned into this political thing. So, it's always fine to kind of find your space. Like, even if you go to college for something, it's okay to not end up doing that. I mean, colleges, especially now, you're just paying a lot of money to get into debt, and then typically not even working in that field. So yeah, I really enjoyed the Daily Wire. As far as like my personal background, I grew up, my dad owned a bakery when we were kids, so I grew up working at a bakery at a small business, raised Catholic. Father very conservative, my family's very conservative, all my cousins, big Italian Catholic family in New York, oddly enough, but upstate, so it's very different. It's like two different states, two different worlds. So yeah, I will be in the media sphere until they like you said, Cal, until they kick us off and break down stuff. So
yeah. That's kind of the feel that I have. Again, I just want to remind the audience that these episodes are filmed in advance of when you guys are probably watching it. So what's happening right now is this is the day after the big Twitter purge when we're recording right now. So we're just kind of sitting here like, okay, are they going to take away our Twitter accounts? Are they going to take away our YouTube channels? What are they going to do? And I wanted to get your take a little bit on this because last night I was having so many people DM me and they're just like in terror or in, meltdown mode or whatever. And I just think I have a tendency also to fall into that trap. I would probably default to, I want to just go into depression over this, or I want to panic over this, or that kind of thing. But my other feel on this is it's nice that they finally revealed themselves. It's nice that, the curtains are down. Like we're not pretending anymore. They're actually in a, I don't want to say the word war, but I'm just going to just throw that out there. Like there are people Yeah, these people hate people of differing ideology, and I'm not even just talking about conservatives. I'm talking about somebody who potentially just says, maybe we shouldn't treat Trump supporters like they're, pieces of garbage. Maybe we shouldn't other people into oblivion so that they feel desperate. Maybe we shouldn't treat even if you're a liberal saying that makes you, a target because you're breaking with the traditional line of thought. So my question to you is how are you dealing with this emotionally, and how do you think is the best way to kind of approach this without turning into a meltdown and just being an emotional chaos?
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. I'm not going to lie. Week. We knew this was going to happen, right? We knew that Trump was going to be banned. I think most people who were any sort of conservative saw the writing on the wall. They started doing this already, right? They're not going to stop at Alex Jones. Like, we know that. They've effectively cut off the president of the United States from the people. I mean, even when he was first suspended, he couldn't release that video until they vetted it. So, I mean, we have the speech of our president being filtered through big tech.
Yeah.
Pretty scary. I'm not going to, I think this is sort of inevitable. So I'll try to spin it as positive as I can. Is that this clash was inevitable. And now that we don't have the Senate, we don't have the House, and we don't have the executive, I mean, even though we did have the Senate or we had Congress before, not a lot changed anyway. So,
right.
So we don't have that now. And this stuff is really coming to a head. These two Americas. I mean, LeBron James said this yesterday, and of course he was saying it because he was pouting about being a rich, almost billionaire in America, but being black in America. But there are two Americas. He's correct about that. There are two Americas, and there are dissidents, people who do not walk in lockstep with the left, and then there are left. I mean, we had people talking about putting Trump supporters on lists. This was even pre-election. They want to prosecute President Donald Trump. They want to impeach him. They don't want him to ever be allowed to run again. They want to memory hole him and his supporters. They have disdain for Trump supporters. And what's going to happen now is the crackdown on the First Amendment. So, of course, when what happened at the U.S. Capitol happened, that was a perfect way to justify this big tech crackdown. So we're having, like you said, right? Nothing's ambiguous anymore. We are going after you. You are not allowed to be on our site. We're going to purge you. And that's the first step, is we're going to have this massive First Amendment crackdown. We're going to have, it's going to be, not just on social media. Like, you're going to have, we're already seeing people getting fired, right, for even being at the Trump protest. You're going to have payment processors rejecting people. It's going to be like a civil rights thing, like, honestly. It's going to get sort of bad before it gets better. We saw the mayor of DC say that she wants to give DC statehood within the first 100 days of the Biden presidency. They don't want us ever to win another election. They want to silence us for good, right? This is it. This is the step. So that was pretty bleak. That was supposed to be a positive spin. But the thing is, this was sort of inevitable. Like I said, this was sort of going to happen. So now it's finally at a head, and it's like, what happens now? What happens now is I think we have elected Republicans who think that the Trump support and that Trump base, they can push it aside and move on, and they can't, and they cannot. Right. And what is going to happen is, I would guess that the Republican Party is going to transform totally into this Trumpism and never stop. Trump might actually try to run in 2024 and split the party, which would probably be necessary anyway. So it might take like decades to build it up, but it would ultimately transform a new Republican Party. I think there are going to be dramatic transformations. I guess the one caveat would be they suppress so much that we can't have this sort of new Republican Party. It's just kind of like we return back to the neocon status quo type of thing. But what I would predict is that we're going to have a new Republican Party, and you're not just going to step over Trumpism, and this is kind of it. It's happening.
Yeah. I mean, they've set the precedent for so long throughout 2020 of, if you fall out of lockstep with what we tell you, then we are going to, for example, turn your power off. We saw this in LA and in Southern California when people were disobeying the lockdown orders or the stay-at-home orders or the bans against certain amounts of people being in the same place at the same time, which is also kind of unconstitutional because, you know, the right to assembly is actually in that First Amendment that we're always talking about.
And they treated those things differently, right? That First Amendment protection was okay for protest, it was now okay for church. So, you know, right there you have constitutional issues. But and by the way, you were against the lockdown from the jump. You were excellent, but go on.
Well, I thank you for pointing that out. I have felt a little bit on the outside of a lot of these issues, and I'm slowly seeing people who disagreed with me in the beginning now starting to come around, and I'm doing my best. I'm doing my very best, although I will confess on the back end with people like Jacob Berry, we're definitely saying, see, we told you so that this was going to happen.
I know. It takes like all my power not to say. I think I probably have. But,
I'm sure. I'm sure that I've said something publicly to that effect, but I'm glad that people are coming around, and I'm glad that people are seeing that this is not a game that's being played. This is a very serious issue that's happening, and I just think it's really important that people now take it as seriously that your right to assemble is actually in the Constitution and it's been taken away. Your right to go to church is also in the Constitution and that's been taken away. Even here in California, where the Supreme Court has said, no, you actually can't regulate church. You can't tell them that they can't have church. They're still doing it. Like, they don't care what the Constitution said. You're still restricted on your ability to go to church here. And so I wanted to get your take on how this is affecting just the average person, because I like to go to you for this kind of question, because you are a very down-to-earth person and you give a crap about the little guy. And I mean, in another time, I could see you as even potentially a blue dog, in the sense that you care about what Democrats would say is, you know, the downtrodden, or the person who is, you know, trying to run their own business, or the working class, exactly. Yeah. So this entire last year of 2020 has just devastated the economy, right? And you've got the little guy, or even, you know, the hairstylist, or the restaurant owner, or whoever it is who's had their income wiped out. They're either on social, or they're on unemployment, or whatever it happens to be. And there's this fostering of this negative attitude toward everybody. You go to the store and everybody has a mask on, and everybody is encouraged to judge anybody else who either isn't wearing a mask or is wearing the mask incorrectly. And it's just been fostering this hatred and this dislike for everybody else. And so I wanted to get your perspective on that, because that's just how I feel in California. I have to go to the store later today. I hate going to the store. I hate it because I feel like everybody's either looking at me or judging me or acting like, why are you even here? You're putting me at risk, right? You're putting me at risk. You want me to die of COVID, and that's why you're here at the store. Yeah. So how is it for you in upstate New York? Is it the same feel? Is it worse? Is it different?
Yeah, so I think, okay, you're going to have those extreme people who, you know, are going to say that you're out to, you know, you want to kill grandma and all that extremism. But I think, like you were saying, I think especially like small business owners or people who've lost their job from these small businesses, I think they're probably becoming more radicalized against the government. So I think that's probably been, I guess, the one silver lining, is that they see how awful government is. So, I mean, you kind of have that a little bit, and we've seen like this mass exodus from places like California and New York, and like New York City especially, because of the crackdowns, and people can't live their lives. And these are people who might be apolitical, and they're seeing just how terrible this is. So I think the lockdown has really radicalized a lot of people against the government. I mean, I think the people who are very extreme with COVID are probably very liberal anyway. You know, maybe they see themselves as heroes or whatever, and they just want to like shun other people. And I also think the lockdown had a bigger effect. I actually think the lockdown is why Trump lost the presidency. You know, that was why because I think, and I really do think this, that if the election was a normal election, people went to the polls and we voted, I think there's no way Trump loses. I think he does have a lot of support. I think he lost because there was a lot of ballot harvesting. There was a lot of, and even just ways that were technically within their legislative rules that are, very beneficial. I think we talked about this, Cal, before the election. Remember, I was talking about it. Yeah, Trump could lose because of all the new, there's absolutely no safeguarding to the election now. So I think that enabled this crazy all these new voting, all these regulations to be dropped for voting. And of course, that causes mistrust, and that causes people who don't accept the election. And I'm not talking about the, Sidney Powell stuff and that kind of stuff. I'm talking about everyday Americans who are like, I'd like some transparency here. Why in Pennsylvania are some places allowed to do this and some red places are allowed to do this? Yeah, I'd like some transparency here. And it was no, shut up. You're a conspiracy theorist, shut up. You're not getting any transparency. Okay. And anyone who said otherwise, they incited a riot. It's like, no. Yes. These are real, real issues that the American people have. And they were totally, just shut down. And I think you have the lockdown, which leads to the Trump loss, and then which leads to everyone's home, people are losing their jobs, people don't trust the election system because of the lockdown regulations that it forced, leads to the Capitol. I mean, these all connect, of course, so I don't think the lockdown has made people liberal. I think it's made people more conservative, but I also think it's definitely enhanced all of this division. And of course, that's not, even what happened at the Capitol is not in isolation of the election and the lockdown. Of course, it happened with Black Lives Matter all summer long, right? You have people in the media, you have left-wing politicians who are encouraging riots, who are encouraging taking government takeovers of government property. They tried to set a police station on fire. We saw this all summer long, and it was endorsed and it was encouraged. And we had streets named after BLM. Nobody said anything about Antifa. So when I look at the Capitol, I'm not going to look at it in isolation because that's just ignorant. So the lockdown, of course, plays an effect on all of that kind of stuff.
Hey guys, this is Warrior Woman 91 and you're listening to Reality Check. I hope you guys are enjoying today's episode, and I just wanted to let you know that if you want to support the podcast, you can go over to patreon.com and sign up for any one of 2 of my tiers that I have available. If you guys want to just be a basic supporter, you can have your name read at the end of the show, or if you want to be a super supporter, you can not only have your name read at the end of the show, but you can also find out which guests are coming up next and submit questions. Unlike my previous podcast, only Patreon subscribers will be allowed to submit questions and potentially have them read. So check me out over on Patreon and support the podcast.
And it goes back to my point about this fostering of hatred for anybody who disagrees with you, and even the fostering of isolation and not interacting with anybody outside of your own social circles, or even not interacting with anybody at all. Because I found, it's hard not to. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's very hard when you live in either a rural area or you're in lockdown or whatever, to live in isolation of other people. I actually like to talk to people on occasion, and that's one of the reasons I do this podcast. Yeah, it's made people feel separated from everyone else, and it fosters all kinds of, you're sitting at home with depressed thoughts. Oh gosh, I lost my job. Oh, I lost my meaning, my life's meaning. You've seen how many people have committed suicide over 2020. I will be very interested to see those numbers, because I predicted that this would happen back in March. I said, you lock people in their house. I'm somebody who's dealt with depression throughout my adult life and in my teenage years. You lock somebody in their house and you isolate them for a long enough time, and the most rational person will descend into depression. It's just natural what happens.
It's criminal what has happened. The destruction of people's life's work. Something they wanted to pass down to their child. That community is devastated, and now we have. What has happened in return is we've had the growth of Amazon, we've had the growth of Walmart, we've had the growth of these big businesses, and again, that depletes communities. And like you said, Kelly, right? It's like, who's going to sweep in to save you? Oh, the stimulus checks and the government. And this is all by design, obviously. So yeah, it's horrible. It's criminal. And I've been against lockdown from day one. It is absolutely criminal. You can have precautions. You can allow businesses to open safely. You can do the right thing. But this was never a solution, right? This was to slow the spread to what? We're not going to work for years. Like, what, it's a miracle we even got the vaccine under Trump, thank God. But, it's not going to stop with the vaccine. Come on. You can't just give up your liberty.
Yeah. I mean, we've given up so much because we're afraid to get a cold. Like most people, again, I'm not trying to downplay the severity of, if you are an elderly person and you get this, you need to be, you need to take it seriously, because just like any other disease, if you're elderly and you get pneumonia, most of the time you're going to end up in the hospital because you have to take it seriously. But most people survive COVID. And that's just the bottom line. This isn't like stage 4 cancer, which, by the way, I will want to get some insight from you on. Now Rush Limbaugh has been banned from Twitter. Are you freaking kidding me? He's dying of cancer.
So
oh my gosh.
I believe, Cal, I looked into it because I thought the same thing. I believe he deactivated his account after Trump was booted. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for clarifying that. But I was like,
but they're spending everyone else. What are you supposed to think? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I'm just like, I hate how he's been treated in the media and everywhere else. Like even alleged conservatives saying, how dare he talk about his cancer on air? That just means he's less of a man because he's giving into weakness. And I'm like, are you
savage? He was dead.
Yes.
Said that.
Oh yeah. Dead. I mean, what kind of a monster says that on it even thinks that? That's disgusting. Yeah. But anyway, I digress. I get super defensive. I
adore best boomer in the whole United States. I adore Rush Limbaugh. So
it's just a shame that this is how things are going to potentially have to end for him to see it like this. But I do hope that it was kind of, I don't know, painful to listen to him talk about how he feels like he's failed because so many people have rejected conservatism. And I'm like, that's not on you, that's on them. Like, people are going to either take your message and say, yes, it's true, or they're going to reject it. And it's almost like being, a part of Christianity. There's only so much that I can do as a person to try to convince you or to advocate for my own beliefs, but I can't, it's not my, fault if that person then chooses with their free will to reject that. So my whole deal though with the lockdowns is just that you've got people now in hiding trying to work. You've got people, having locked doors but still seeing clients and all that kind of thing. And I've talked to people who are on, in the political middle, or like would have been willing to lean either way. They probably have voted for Democrats in the past. They probably voted for Republicans in the past, and that are now out and proud, like, we hate this. We can't like Gavin Newsom is a cuss word in this state. Yeah. And I'm not talking about just conservatives, because he already was among conservatives, but I'm talking about the average person that could not care less about politics, that all of a sudden can't go to work and has been out of work since March, or has been working in hiding since March, or has had people, we had in my local area, there was a restaurant that had a tent outside in the freezing cold when they had a heated building that they could have used, but they have a tent outside because they have to have people outside, and then somebody came and vandalized their tent. And this is the situation that people are in. And it's like, it seems like it's almost not kosher to say, I don't endorse violence, but I can understand why people are angry, and I can understand why people are frustrated. So I would be interested to hear any anecdotal situations that you've had in New York, because they're just rampant in California.
Oh yeah, I mean, we have like speakeasy salons in state. Yeah, I mean this is, they have crackdown. It's only gotten worse. Depends on the county. So what they're doing is, because they're morons, so what they're doing goes, for every politician. They are looking at like counties or districts. They're just drawing these like districts, and they're saying, if you have this many cases, of course, because we're looking at cases, dumbest metric ever. If you have this many cases, you're in the red zone, so you're not allowed to do any work. And it's like, so you have this street, right? You got like Buffalo Road, and you have a ton of businesses on one side of the street, and you have a ton of businesses on the other side of the street, and one side of the street can stay open and the other side is closed.
That's insane.
This is really what's going on. I'm not exaggerating. So those businesses are out, right? Because because they have to compete now. So not only are they not making money, their rivals are making money now, and it's like, it's horrible. It's horrible. You have girls doing hair, right, who are probably totally apolitical. I'm not trying to stereotype. I'm just saying, like, someone's just a hairdresser, not just a hairdresser. Sorry, foot in my mouth. No. I'm just saying, if she's if she's a salon worker, maybe she's not the most political person in the world, and now she's somewhere else, in a basement somewhere doing hair just to make money. I mean, give me a break. That's going to radicalize anybody. So I mean, we have all of that stuff here. It is absolutely horrible. And of course, upstate New York is a lot more red than New York City. So, I mean, it depends on the county. Like, some counties are turning more blue, but people are mad. People are very mad. People are very outraged by it. I mean, I see a lot of mask compliance, which sort of sucks. But people are very upset about not being able to work.
Yeah. Especially when you have a situation where, like, you had that one woman who owned the it was at like a bar and restaurant down in Sherman Oaks where I used to live, and she spent $80,000, and I can link the video that Alicia Krause did interviewing her, but she spent $80,000 getting her restaurant and her bar set up so that she could have outdoor dining. And then they said, oh no, outdoor dining, that's off the table now. And she's like, I just spent $80,000. She said in her interview that if she has to close this down, she will be in massive debt, and she will have to move back to the East Coast to live with her parents. And she's in her mid-40s. She said it will devastate her to not be able to reopen, and it will devastate everybody who works for her. And it's just, we've just come to the point where this idea of safety has been used as now this catch-all. It does, I've described it as post 9/11, where safety became the protocol, and now going to the airport is hell, and will be for the rest of time. Yeah. And now we've had another 9/11 event, not to say that not to necessarily make them comparable, but we've had another event that has changed personal lifestyles dramatically. And we're never going to be able to go back to the way we lived life before. And so I would like to get your follow-up on that.
Yeah, those policies are really inhumane, and they're really nasty, and they're really cruel, and they don't care. Like, they just care about these numbers of cases, which they think they're God and they can control. We're like being punished for seasonality, for goodness sakes. It's absolutely disgusting, and people are making a lot of money off of this. People are making a lot of money off of this, and I think that's that's important to keep in mind. I mean, just think about the government, right? Like, you have these these health agencies now that are just have so much power over your life, and why would they give that up? Why would they not want to expand their branch? Like, why wouldn't they want to keep their jobs? Like, yeah, your job lost, but okay, like, we got 10 more. And I saw this. This was like in the midst of the lockdown where. I think it was in Rochester, in Monroe County or something. So, all these businesses are shut down, and like everyone's losing their jobs. And then we had the Monroe County government put out a tweet, and they're like, "Oh, you need a job? You can get like $20 an hour to be a COVID tracker and surveil people." And I'm like, this is what's happening, right? All the private sector jobs are gone. You will work for the government. You will turn on your neighbor. Yeah, I mean, this is the tweet. Like, there we go. Mission complete. This is what they wanted.
Yeah, it's again, it goes back to the whole fostering the bad feelings toward your fellow person. Yeah. Yes. And they're not complying. Exactly. Yeah, and this is I mean, I hate to go back to World War II, but they did this in Germany. That, you know, are your neighbors hiding Jews in their house? Let us know. We wouldn't want anybody whose, you know, beliefs are different or whose skin color is different or whatever stereotype they want to say. We wouldn't want somebody with the yellow star on their shirt to be, you know, allowed to live their life in a peaceful manner. So I want to bring this back to, what do we do now going forward? Just even in personal daily lives, because on a political level, oftentimes there's just not a lot that we can do, because some of this stuff is just going to have to play itself out. But just on a personal level, I'm just looking at this as, okay, all I can do is control, you know, how I deal with my emotions, first of all, because I'm rather volatile emotionally sometimes. And, you know, we're Italians. This is just what happens. The hands go everywhere and everything. But I'm
so calm all the time, and even keel. What are you talking about, Kelly?
But I've had so many friends reach out to me, and they're devastated. They're in despair. They're this, they're that. And I'm just like, well, for me, all I can do is just deal with my own personal finances, and I can prepare, and I can do what I can do. And then that's, you know, I just have to kind of leave it at that and let things play out. So what would your advice be to people who are struggling in this area?
Yeah, I mean, so like, I guess on a communal level, we can really try to help small businesses and like be very conscious of what you're spending your money on. Like that might seem small, but like instead of going through Amazon, instead of going through Walmart, if you can go to like a smaller shop, and I know it's really hard with the lockdown, but anytime you can do that, or like try to help your community and help the people in your community as much as you can, like we really got to foster our church groups, and like, you know, that is like super important, because they're kind of ripping away everything else from us, and they don't want these strong communities. So anytime you can do that, that's really important. And, you know, all of us can just be more conscious of that. I think that's really helpful. I think the best thing you can do is have babies and raise conservative babies, you know, especially if you're a woman. Like, I think that's very helpful. And I think those sort of things you have more control over. You know, that'd be really beneficial. You know, maybe getting closer with your neighbors. You know, again, it comes back to community and family, like that. You know, maybe you have a homeschool group now because of the lockdown. I think more people are homeschooling. Maybe you organize a homeschooling group. You know, so you have more control over what your kids learn, like what our future holds, and you know, stuff like that. So like, on a personal level, right, if you're like struggling, which I know a lot of people are, I mean, you know, just I guess just, you know, reach out to your friends and family as much as you can. Like I know people are some people are like scared to be around others, you know, because of COVID, but I think you just have to look big picture, and like stopping your life is not really living, obviously.
No.
So you know, you have to, you know, figure out ways to see people physically. Like even if you go outside, like I know it's kind of winter here, but we can catch some good days in New York. Like if you can do something outside with friends, like I'm totally fine being inside with friends, you know, but if some people don't feel comfortable, figure out a way to like be outside or something, because it's just very unhealthy for your mental health to be, you know, alone. And, you know, even something as simple as like going to the store, right? Maybe you could do that and talk to somebody. Like people do that for the sense of community, like going to a ball game or something. And it's been ripped from us too. Join a church. Join a church. Maybe you're not religious. Join a church. You know, get that sense of community. I mean, that's kind of weak advice. I wish I had like more personal advice, but I think all those things would be helpful.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And I think that it's so often that people just kind of overlook advice like that. They think, oh, we need to have some profound thing to fix our lives. But really, it really just comes back to the basics of you need to go to church, you need to, you know, interact with people. And, you know, regardless of lockdown orders, much of it has been rendered unconstitutional in my state. And they're just enforcing it by default, or they're enforcing it because they've made you afraid. They've made you afraid to do anything differently. And so I would just suggest any limits that can be pushed, push them.
That's
because
right. That's right, Kyle.
That's the way I live my life. I will push the limits as far as I can. I've gone to the store without a mask on. I have gotten blowback. So I try to be, mindful of, okay, I know this store is going to be a little bit more, nitpicky about it. This store isn't. But I do think that the mask wearing is a big problem.
Yes.
And not because I'm being like, oh, I'm annoyed by it, or it's a problem because it dehumanizes a person. It makes you, it's like wearing a burqa. It dehumanizes you because now you don't have a face. You're not a real person. You're just an object in the store now. And so
also, it reinforces fear. We are all supposed to be afraid. Don't you forget it.
Yes.
That is the number one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a constant reminder of you have to be afraid. You have to be afraid to go to the store. Some people are, or whatever you happen to be doing. And it's just, I kept saying this to my friend the other day. It's so frustrating. This is my new mantra. Everything is frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's a reinforcement of fear, and it's a reinforcement of you need to be suspicious of that person next to you who's wearing a mask, because anybody who wore a mask prior to 2020, you would be suspicious of. Anybody who wore a mask while going into a bank, you would assume is going to rob the bank.
Yeah.
So it's funny how life has just changed, and what was true then is the opposite now, and different things like that. So I do I really appreciate you coming on, Amanda, and I think you have a lot of great insight. What are some projects that you've got going on, or that you're excited about going into 2021 that hopefully haven't been canceled yet by the left?
Yeah, well, I'm just, kind of chugging along with the Daily Wire. I always toyed around with like a podcast. Maybe I'll actually do that, because it looks like I'm losing my Twitter following anyway. So maybe I'll try to figure out a way to do something else, because I think we're all going to lose a platform that we once had. So anything we can kind of do on our own, I think, figure out some kind of way around this stuff. So just hanging out. The Daily Wire is really expanding into like entertainment and stuff, I think is super cool, because obviously politics is downstream from culture. So that's really exciting to be a part of that. Like, that'll be really fun to see all of that stuff going on. We're gonna have like the Candace Owens show in Nashville, like a live show, which I think is really fun, because we don't really have that with we don't really have a ton of that. So I thought that would be super fun. So a lot of cool stuff at the Daily Wire, and then me personally, maybe, I keep saying this, but like maybe a podcast. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, if you need a producer, Kelly might be available.
Cal.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Amanda. I will link all of your social media in the description below. Please, everybody, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell to get notifications, and comment below what you guys thought about this guest, because she's just absolutely awesome. She's one of my best friends, I have to say. I can't say enough good things about Amanda.
Nice things. Yeah.
Say nice things to Amanda in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys on the next video.